It is Tuesday, April 7th, 2026, and it's swamp time, so don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily updates you probably won't see in the mainstream. Every article is linked in the description below, and if this video is too long for you, the highlight clips will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Florida time. We're going to start right here with the White House. President Donald J. Trump makes a statement on Iran. So this whole statement on Iran kind of torpedoed my entire show for tonight because I was putting together everything leading up to the big 8 o'clock p.m. deadline Eastern Standard Time, where if Iran didn't open up the Strait of Hormuz by then all hell was breaking loose. Holy hellfire was going to rain down on Iran, the likes of which nobody has ever seen before in the history of humankind. So there was a lot of posts, a lot of information coming out, a lot of buildup going up into that 8 o'clock p.m. time, and then just about 6:30 p.m. here, let me give you the exact time. It was at 6:47 p.m. The White House posted this, and this is from President Trump's Truth Social account. That's where he posted it first. It was probably about 10 minutes before the White House posted it, and he has an update with regard to the deal that he proposed to Iran and a deal that Iran proposed to the United States. And it reads as follows: based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight on or to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America, as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And this is directly from his Truth Social. It was so hot off the press, I didn't see anybody else post it yet. I don't usually check on his Truth Social, but as soon as I put everything together and I knew that the 8 p.m. deadline was looming, I figured I'd jump over to Truth Social directly and check out President Trump's profile. And he posted this like minutes before I came across it. Let me see if it has the timestamp. Yeah, so this is at 6:32 p.m. Of course, I don't have the timestamp when I grabbed it, but actually, matter of fact, I probably do, the exact time that I posted it. So this was posted, okay, 6:56 p.m. All right, so I was off by a little bit. But anyway, it's the exact same statement, so I'm not going to read it, just simply showing that it was added to his True Social account and the White House had reposted accordingly. And we're going to move on to all of the rest of the information with that amazing news out of the way. Of course, the Democrats, I'm sure they're probably seething because they've been screaming, 25th Amendment, 25th Amendment, it's time to impeach him. He's unhinged. He's a dictator. He said he's going to wipe out an entire civilization. That is Iran. He's going to exterminate the entire country. He is beyond unhinged. He must be removed immediately. What are Republicans waiting for? Well, Democrats, y'all are on vacation in the House and in the Senate, so you couldn't impeach him right now even if you wanted to, because just like Republicans, the demon rats went on vacation too for Easter. Not that most of them even celebrate Easter. But anyway, we have this from the Spectator Index. Breaking: Trump says a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. And he did indeed say that on his Truth Social, of course, as usual. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. And so I don't have the timestamp from his Truth Social post from this exactly. However, the repost of this from the Spectator Index came down at 8:08 a.m. this morning, of course, April 7th. We got this from Senator Dick Durbin, who is one of the Democrat leaders. He is the Democratic whip, WHIP whip and ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He says President Trump's comments, including threatening the death of a whole civilization, continue to embarrass our nation and risk an even greater military and economic quagmire. When will congressional Republicans stand up to President Trump's risky war of choice? Jake Tapper, the President of the United States, 8:06 a.m. Eastern Time, threatens Iran. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Of course, they were freaking out all day. If you follow Democrats on the X platform, oh yeah, they were seething like crazy today after he posted that. This is a statement from the House Democrats as a whole. And let's see what they have to say about this. House Democrat leadership statement on Donald Trump's threat to kill a whole civilization. Quote, Donald Trump is completely unhinged. His statement threatening to eradicate an entire civilization shocks the conscience and requires a decisive congressional response. The House must come back into session immediately and vote to end this reckless war of choice in the Middle East before Donald Trump plunges our country into World War III. Yeah, because of course Iran obtaining nuclear weapons is totally by choice. It's totally up to us. It's up to Iran. You know, it's just a choice by Trump. Just let him have the nuclear weapons. Obviously, Barack Obama wanted them to. He was the one who bankrolled the whole fucking thing. What, $1.5 billion in hard currency, which they used directly to fund for their nuclear weapons research and development, just is an extra slap in the face across the American people. All right, let's continue. For years, Republicans have enabled and excused Donald Trump's deeply dangerous and extreme behavior. Enough is enough. Our brave men and women in uniform have been put into harm's way in the Middle East. Over a dozen have already been killed and hundreds injured. Gas prices are skyrocketing. The cost of living in America is out of control, Biden. And billions of taxpayer dollars are being wasted on a reckless war of choice. What is that? 1, 2, 3 times that they use the word choice. It's time for House Republicans to put patriotic duty over party loyalty and join Democrats in stopping this madness. So that obviously didn't age too well because President Trump just successfully brokered a ceasefire for 2 weeks within hours. Not even 12 hours. Like, what was that? 10 hours. 10 hours after they posted this nonsense threatening to impeach him as soon as humanly possible. We've got to come back from our 2-week Easter break, which I don't understand why the fuck that they need a 2-week Easter break when Easter was only over the weekend. But whatever, that's for another conversation. Laura Loomer says, how do we get to a point where a Muslim congresswoman who committed immigration fraud is talking about impeaching a U.S. president? Ban Muslims from holding office in the U.S. Ban foreign-born citizens from holding office in the U.S. How embarrassing for our country. And of course, she's talking about Ilhan Omar. Who else would she be talking about? Sickeningly evil. Is that even an English word? Probably not even a word, but whatever. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Donald Trump must be impeached. When will it be enough for my Republican colleagues to grow spines and remove him from office? Ain't gonna happen. Jonathan Lemmeyer says President Donald Trump is threatening that a whole civilization will die tonight. Of course, Democrats, they take it extremely literally whenever it conveniences them the most. They understand what he was saying. He's going to overthrow the regime, not the entirety of Iran. Because, look, right at the very end, it says, God bless the great people of Iran. Did I even read this whole thing? I don't even think I even read this. Let's give this a read. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now we have complete and total regime change. We're different, smarter, and less radicalized. Minds prevail. Maybe something revolutionary wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Look, I already know I read it. I just wanted to read it again. And especially finishing off with God bless the great people of Iran. Why would you wish upon the extermination of an entire country and then bless them by God or on behalf of God? Doesn't make a lot of sense now, does it, Democrats? All right, RNC Research, Democrat spokesperson Hassan Piker. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. He's a massive douchebag on, on Twitch? I think he's primarily on Twitch. Yeah, I vaguely see the Twitch logo behind him. He's just an absolute pissant of a human being. Anyway, he urged his audience to kill Republican lawmakers. Piker, if you cared about Medicare fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. This is the sick lunatic who Democrats are campaigning with. So, of course, for anybody else, especially conservatives, if you said that, I don't know, if if you stand for Obamacare, even though it's skyrocketed your insurance premiums, you should kill, insert Democrat name here. Yeah, Twitch would immediately ban you. They would, I'm sure that their algorithms would just automatically ban you within milliseconds. But when you got the likes of Hassan Piker, a far leftist, on at Twitch, you can say whatever the flying fuck you want over on Twitter or Twitch, and they won't do a damn thing about it. You could just say literally whatever you want if you're on the left. But if you're on the right, look, they've banned people off Twitch just because they identify as somebody who's on the right or somebody who is conservative. Not everybody. There might be a few who might be lingering there. But you know what? If you're on Twitch and if you're a conservative, then I might be deeply questioning your conservatism because you're probably making some very shady backdoor deals with Twitch. But anyway, here, let's give this a play.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. Okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him the current, what is his current office? What is he? He's the Richard Lynn Scott, is an American attorney, businessman, politician, Navy veteran, serving as the senior United States Senator from Florida, a seat he has held since 2019.
That's my senator.
And also,
I voted for him.
believe this past election cycle, he was literally the f***ing head of the, what was it, like the Senate committee or something? If you cared
He doesn't even fucking know. Yeah, see, look, I don't follow Hassan Piker. I've seen some people rag on him, talk a lot of shit about him, which is very entertaining to watch. But from what I've heard, he is pretty politically ignorant. Like, he really doesn't know a lot of what the hell he's talking about. He's just throwing out just random, left-wing buzzwords and talking points and so on and so forth. Look, I don't know a whole lot about Rick Scott either. I know that he became a multi-millionaire. I think he's worth over $100 million because he ran a hospital network for a period of time. I think he acquired a bunch of hospitals over his career, and he made an absolute killing off of it. So not crazy about his past. I also didn't even like him as governor. I actively did not vote for him went back when he was governor because I just didn't like him because he lied a lot. In my opinion, he did. But anyway, whatever. So yeah, so Hassan Piker said that without any consequences whatsoever. Absolutely nothing's going to happen to him. You might know Hassan Piker as the guy who puts an electrical collar on his dog who is laying back there behind him. If the dog steps out of line, if he gets out of bed, then Hassan Piker will very subtly and what he believes to be quietly and discreetly leans over to the right side of his table, and he'll what appears to hit a button, and his dog will yelp really loud. So maybe you've seen that before. If you're not familiar with him, you're not missing much anyway, so whatever. We'll just move on to BRICS news. Just in, both the U.S. and Iran reject peace plan proposed by mediators. So you see, this is kind of where the show starts to go a little bit off the rails. But look, this is all that the swamp was talking about for the most part throughout the day, because that was a big clock that Trump had put up on the wall, and we were all waiting for it to strike 8 p.m. Eastern time. So there was a lot of news that was going around in the mainstream today, and we'll just go through it piece by piece. Look, there's still videos of things that did happen throughout the day today, so it's not going to be a total wash. It's not going to be a total loss or anything. There's still going to be important details in here, especially once I move on beyond the Iranian situation, and I'll get into other matters that happened in our federal machine. From Fox News, breaking U.S. bombs dozens of Iranian military targets on Karg Island overnight, including bunkers, radar station, ammunition storage, senior U.S. official tells. And if you're not familiar with Karg Island, this island, it's a relatively small island. I believe it's either really close to the Strait of Hormuz or it's in the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know. It's in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz, which is on the southern border, southern western-ish border of Iran. And from what I've read and what I've heard, 95% of all Iran's oil passes through this island. So if we were to decimate this island, we would effectively financially just put Iran completely back into the Stone Age, because their economy has been teetering and faltering and damn near collapsing for years. And that's with their full ability to export oil, mainly to China. I think China is their biggest importer of oil. But anyway, so that's Karg Island. So we've been bombing it today. Of course, Iran's not pleased about that. And this is from U.S. Central Command. U.S. Navy fighter jets takes off from USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN-72, during Operation Epic Fury. U.S. forces continue to conduct strikes against military targets of Iran. Let's take a look. Hell yeah, I was muted. Danger zone, buddy. That song's always going to come to mind when you watch these footage videos. On the aircraft carrier. Of course. Of course, of course. Gotta love Kenny Loggins. All right, Eric Doherty, just in. Iranian regime mouthpieces are backtracking on claims that diplomatic channels closed with the U.S. and President Trump. Conveniently, they're backtracking after the U.S. struck Karg Island. They're panicking ahead of 8 p.m. Make a deal. Yeah, because I have a feeling that's exactly what Trump's intentions were. I have a feeling that they were just going to carpet bomb the absolute shit out of Karg Island and just absolutely wipe it off the face of the earth. And if they did that, then Iran's economy, I don't even know if it would even exist after that. Of course, it would obviously exist. I really honestly don't know what the hell they would do if they lost Karg Island completely. I mean, they would be in some serious trouble. So, all right, so we got this from Tel Aviv, Israel on Fox News. It's about a half a minute.
Confirm overnight the United States hit dozens of targets on Iran's Karg Island. This is the island responsible for more than 90% of Iran's oil exports. Fox's Jennifer Griffin says the targets included bunkers, radar stations, and ammunition storage. As this was taking place, the clock is ticking as it relates to that deadline President Trump laid out Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, just about 12 hours from now, before Iran must make a deal with the United States, or the president says he will order strikes against Iranian power plants and bridges. This is what the president had to say yesterday from the White House.
All right, and then the video ends from there. Obviously, they didn't want to call Trump's bluff at like the 0 hour, man. It was, well, not literally at the 0 hour. I think there was, an hour and a half to spare by the time that Trump had posted that Truth Social post saying that there was a deal that was made. Fancy that. They didn't want to go toe-to-toe against President Trump, and that was a very good idea for them not to do so. Eric Doherty breaking the Israelis just begun strikes on Iranian rail systems and rail bridges across the country as the U.S. strikes Karg Island. I think it's safe to say absolutely none of these threats were bluffing on behalf of President Trump. It's power plant and bridge day, as President Trump said, I believe it was yesterday. The Israelis have started strikes against Iranian rail infrastructure.
Official confirming to Fox News that the Israelis have started strikes against Iranian rail infrastructure. Remember, earlier today, the Israelis warned civilians to stay off the trains in Iran. They have started to target the bridges.
We saw that footage yesterday, actually. That wasn't from today. Yeah, it says right there, Sunday.
Strikes overnight against Karg Island, the largest export facility in Iranian territory, accounting for around 90% of Iran's oil exports. And you have ongoing U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iranian military infrastructure. What we are looking at right now is a staging operation. The United States and Israel are preparing. If a deal is not made, there will be an increase in strikes against the Iranian regime. The president described it as power plant day and bridge day to go after this critical infrastructure inside of Iran. But what's very interesting here, I spoke with a high-ranking source last night, and I asked what happens next if the president orders these strikes. And they said, again, this is the Achilles heel of the regime, targeting
they have to sit there and take it.
And what
they get
it may
spanked.
actually do
That's
is
what happens.
force their hand at the negotiating table. Because, again, the president has time and time again, even before Operation Epic Fury began, preferred a diplomatic option. But the Iranians have been unwilling to take a diplomatic option, and that is how we ended up in this Operation Epic Fury that is unfolding before our eyes as we speak.
And we're about to find out in a minute why you don't tell the whole world what your intentions are before you execute those intentions, because Iran had an answer to the possibility or the probability that American forces were going to blow up their bridges and their buildings and their infrastructure. Absolutely sickening. Iran's state TV is urging children and students to flood the power plants and become human shields in case of strikes. They're literally calling on kids and civilians to sacrifice themselves to protect the regime's infrastructure tomorrow. Truly disgusting animals. So let's hear what they
فردا در
say.
اطراف نیروگاه‌های برق کشور زنجیره انسانی
Sorry for the
جوانان
volume.
تشکیل می‌شود. علیرضا رحیمی دبیر شورای عالی جوانان و نوجوانان کشور در پی پیشنهاد جوانان خلاق و فعالان گروه‌های مردمی از جوانان و چهره‌های فرهنگی، هنری و ورزشی دعوت کرد برای تشکیل زنجیره انسانی در اطراف نیروگاه‌های برق کشور در ساعت 14 حضور پیدا کنند.
من از همه جوانان، ورزشکاران، هنرمندان، بچه‌های دانشجو و دانشگاهی و اساتیدمون دعوت میکنم فردا سه‌شنبه ساعت 2 ظهر دور نیروگاه‌هایی که داشته و سرمایه ملی ما هستند، بدون توجه به هر سلیقه و دیدگاه سیاسی، مال آینده ایران و مال جوانان ایرانی هستند. جمع بشن.
Absolutely insane. These people are fucking insane. And the Democrats wonder why Trump was wanting to go after them. I mean, in addition to the whole nuclear weapons things, is because these people are brutally, absolutely insane. So they want their youth, their children, to form a human chain all the way around power plants to try to prevent them getting struck by U.S. and Israeli forces, which obviously, now that we found out that at least a potential deal was made, I mean, he called off the strikes, at least for now. And if the ceasefire holds for 2 weeks, then I guess we'll see what happens. But look, that's why that is probably not a good idea that you tell them that you're going to start bombing their power infrastructure and their rail lines and bridges and so on and so forth, because then they'll start dragging out children and using them as human shields. The Islamic regime in Iran has issued a call for the Iranian youth, athletes, artists, students to gather in front of the country's power plants. This is on Vicegrad 24. They want to use children as human shields against U.S. bombs, Hamas style. And they typically have an article. Let me just double check and see if they've got one down here. No, they don't. All right. Well, usually the gold badge signifies that they are a publication of some sort. Not sure why they wouldn't have the article there, but all right. Well, let's move on. Iran News 24, breaking Iran's IRGC statement. Quote, self-restraint is over. Our response will now be carried out without any consideration, depriving the U.S. and its allies of oil and gas for years, even though we're a net exporter of oil and doesn't really affect us any. If the U.S. Army crosses red lines, our response will exceed the region's boundaries. So, short, simple, to the point. And Jackson Hinkle, this also came from Iran. From now on, certain considerations regarding good neighborliness and self-restraint have ended. We will deal with the infrastructure of the United States and its partners in the Persian Gulf in such a way that they will be deprived of the region's oil and gas for years. From Iran's IRGC. This time it's not a video. Not sure why they didn't link the video this time. Usually we have this this dickweed that's usually on a video for like 30 seconds or so, but I guess we're not going to get that today. Anyway, Globe Eye News. Breaking, Iran announces if the U.S. crosses red lines, the response will be beyond the region. And of course, hopefully the deal holds up, and then we may not have to go that far to where we may have to exchange. Well, look, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of exchanging coming from Iran. Yeah, they might fire off a missile here and there. They got extremely lucky with the whole F-15 situation. But anyway, I'll digress. Ambassador Mike Waltz. Iran's tyrannical regime has persisted for nearly 5 decades in escalating its attacks against the American people, our allies in the region, and the world's commercial fleets. Watch my remarks in the UN Security Council. And Mike Waltz, of course, he's the ambassador, and he is the ambassador, I believe, for the United Nations, representing the United States at the United Nations. So let's hear what he says.
President Trump explained in his statement last week to the nation and the world, we are here because Iran's tyrannical regime has persisted for decades in escalating its attacks against the American people, our allies in the region, and the world's commercial fleets, in flagrant violation of international law and nearly a dozen resolutions from the United Nations Security Council. Colleagues, 47 years ago, the Iranian regime's first act was to take dozens of Americans hostage. Now, it's taking the Strait of Hormuz hostage.
I saw the movie Argo.
And with it, attempting
I wasn't alive
to
back
take
then.
the world's economy
Wasn't born yet.
hostage. Well, colleagues, that may be its last act.
That was a good movie, by the way.
We'll see. Iran has laid mines in the strait. They are firing upon civilian commercial vessels. These vessels are carrying fertilizer, oil, medical supplies, other critical goods around the world.
They're destroying the environment,
threatening
in other
the
words.
entire world,
Or at least
with
trying to.
energy shortages, disrupted supply chains, and possibly even famine.
All right. So I've got one of, I believe, 3. I think we had 2 more from Ambassador Mike Waltz. So instead of just reading the passage, let's just go for it.
Let me reiterate 2 simple messages from the United States. First, the U.S. stands firmly with our partners in the Middle East. Second, the Strait of Hormuz is too vital to the world to be used as hostage, to be choked, to be weaponized by any one state. Colleagues, let me be frank. Most member states here need the Strait of Hormuz more than the United States does.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely
Still,
a fact.
as this council knows, the U.S. has consistently pursued a diplomatic resolution, even as we continue to achieve our objectives in Operation Epic Fury. We have put serious diplomatic proposals before Iran. The U.S. remains prepared for meaningful diplomacy. But diplomacy cannot succeed where defiance, delay, and escalation remain Tehran's only response. We are grateful to our mediating partners for their continued effort to secure a peaceful resolution, but Iran has to choose one.
All right. And I believe Iran is in the UN, aren't they? They were like in the early part of this conflict, at least the first meeting or maybe the first couple of meetings at the UN, there was somebody there that was at least representing Iran who was present. And that's what I thought. Yes, Iran is a member of the United Nations. It was one of the original 51 founding members back in 1945. All right. And why did that scroll away? What the hell? All right. We're all good. We're all good. All right. One more. We'll do one more for Ambassador Waltz.
Why is all of this happening? Because regional peace is a threat to Iran. Apparently, it's not good, or apparently it's bad for China and Russia too. It exposes the Iranian regime for what it is, which is a dictatorship punching at the kneecaps of its neighbors who have realized a better future for their people. Just across the Strait of Hormuz, cities like Dubai, Doha, and Manama, and Riyadh beckon the Iranian people for a better future. That's the threat, colleagues. That's what the regime doesn't want to see for its own people. Right across the Gulf, there is a brighter, better future, a different model.
Yeah, good point.
And they will not have it, and they're attacking it at every turn.
Yeah, all they got to do is just look right across the strait at the beautiful skylines of Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I don't think you can see Riyadh from there, though, right? Isn't Riyadh like further in Saudi Arabia? I don't know, it's been a while since I've looked at a map over there. RNC Research, retired U.S. Navy Vice Admiral Mark Fox on the terrorist Iranian regime. Quote, anytime you have a regime that is willing to kill their own people on an industrial scale, we're not dealing with rational people.
Yeah, these are not people that we're not like each other here. They think differently. Their religion and their government are one and the same. They have an apocalyptic kind of end of the world feeling of or attitude towards their belief. And this is the same regime that sent little boys with plastic keys into minefields in the late 1980s to clear mines. And they were promised that they would go to paradise. Anytime you have a regime that is willing to kill their own people on an industrial scale, I think it's a really difficult thing for the people to overthrow that. And so we're not dealing with rational people. We're dealing with people who are completely set in their ways and not willing, I don't think, to listen to any reason or the force that we're applying to them.
Yeah, and you know what? If he's right, then look, if there's going to be any peace or any kind of quiet periods, it's going to probably end up just being short-lived. I mean, it'd be nice if the Iranian people just completely overthrew this regime, but it's probably a lot easier said than done. All right, Vice Grad 24, we got one more. Trump, we rebuilt Germany, and now Germany tells us it's not their war. This, I believe, was from yesterday when President Trump spoke to the media yesterday.
Use it. To the victor go the spoils. And we don't have that. We haven't had that in this country probably in 100 years, because even the Second World War, you look at the Second World War, we didn't have it with the Second World. We helped rebuild all those countries. We rebuilt Germany. How about Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything.
Say the same thing about us back in World War II, right?
We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right?
All right, that was kind of an ignorant statement for me to say, because Germany, they declare war against the United States, right, before we even enter the conflict over in Europe. At least I think so. Anyway, that's the end of that video clip. I just came across that and just figured I would share that tonight. And I'll repost it. There's a direct link to my profile below in the description if I was mouthing off too much while he was talking. All right, from the CIA. This was also from yesterday, so I figured I'd include this also directly from the CIA.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack, finding this pilot. And the CIA was unbelievable.
On Saturday morning, we achieved our primary objective by finding and providing confirmation that one of America's best and bravest was alive.
The CIA was very responsible for finding this little speck.
Still invisible to the enemy, but not to the CIA.
I want to thank the CIA, too. I don't think they get enough credit.
Well, of course, they're going to jump at the chance to run a promo after that happened, because you don't hear the president talking about, well, hell, you don't hear really much anybody ever talking about the CIA, especially to the mainstream media. All right, Globe Eye News. Tucker Carlson says no president should mock Islam. That's not your job. This is not a theocracy. So he's talking about the post that President Trump made yesterday. If you saw my episode last night or yesterday, or even if you watched it at some point today, the one that I recorded on Monday, I shared a post, and it was of Trump basically saying, praise be to Allah, after he mentioned in the post that we were just going to bomb the ever-loving shit out of Iran. Anyway, so Tucker Carlson, he decided to give his 2 cents on it. I came across it today. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot else going on outside of the whole Iranian conflict, so might as well just give it a play. Let's see what he says.
Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the F word on Easter morning?
Oh, yeah, that happened too.
You'll be living
Oh, here we go.
hell.
Here we go.
Just watch. Praise be to Allah.
Yeah, so that was the post. I forgot that was still the same post. I remember the whole open the fucking straight. So I showed that yesterday. You crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. And it's also, of course, the same post where he mentioned it being the nation's power plant day, Enbridge Day.
Be to Allah. So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. Okay.
But it's not really the religion of Iran, because what was it? Only 35% of Iranians are Islam or Muslim or whatever. Like, the majority of Iranians are not even Muslim or Islam.
If you seek a religious
What are you talking about, Tucker?
That's a good idea. But by the way, no decent person mocks other people's religions. You may have a problem with the theology, presumably
you
you
just
do
mock
if
the
it's not
regime,
your
that's all.
religion, and you can explain what that is. But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself. And we should never mock that, because at its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it.
I'm sure they don't
We
mock
won't be
Christianity
here at the
ever.
end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it, because
Maybe
we are
they
not
don't,
God.
though. What do I know?
The message of all faith at the biggest picture level is the message in our Bible, which is you are not God. And only if you think you are do you talk this way. But it's not just mockery of Islam. And no president should mock Islam. That's not your job. This is not a theocracy. We don't go to war with other theocracies to find out which theocracy is more effective. We are not a theocracy. And God willing, we never will be, because theocracies corrupt the religion.
Well, I wouldn't say never. The Democratic Party still exists.
No, this is a mockery not just of Islam. It's a mockery of Christianity. To send out a tweet with the F word on Easter morning promising the murder of civilians and then saying praise be to Allah?
Yeah, that was a
without
little
explaining
heavy.
any of it,
I was like,
you
dude, what are you
mocking
doing,
me
President Trump?
and every other
You're
Christian
dropping
because
F-bombs
we're
on Easter?
Christians.
What are you
We
doing?
can't support that. That is evil. That is an intentional desecration of beauty and truth, which is the definition of evil.
All right, well, it happened, Tucker. It still happened, regardless, one way or the other. And, anyway, it happened. So what are we going to do? All right, Jack the Ripper. The New World Order. The United States of America will withdraw over 100,000 U.S. troops from Europe and halt its annual defense spending of trillions of dollars. Now, before I hit play, there was a bit of a community note. At least it was on my phone. Apparently it's not there now. Well, anyway, the community note said that we don't have 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe. We only have like 85,000 troops. So they were correcting that part of it. And then the other part they were correcting was that we don't spend trillions of dollars annually in Europe on our military. So they were just making 2 corrections on the numbers. So whether if Marco Rubio says those specific numbers, I guess we'll find out. Let's have a look.
When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed.
There you go. Over the years, trillions of dollars. So he didn't say trillions of dollars annually.
In the region, if we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it.
I think an act of Congress,
We're going to finish the
too.
job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict is over.
Yeah, I agree. And if the Republicans had more of a spine than they have, and if they were actually, if they had the balls to do so, then they absolutely should not only examine it, but they should follow through with that. They should close these bases, because what's the point in spending all this money on these bases when we can't use them when we need them? It doesn't make any sense. But thanks to Joe Biden signing whatever the hell he signed into law, I think I believe it was passed by Congress, which essentially strips the ability for a sitting U.S. president to withdraw our country from NATO. So Trump can't unilaterally do that, even though he could have. During his first administration, he would have been able to do that. But if I read it right, then it's going to have to take an act of Congress. And I think the answer to who is running Congress, look, at least by appearance, the Republicans are the ones that have control over the House, and they have the majority in the Senate. So you think it wouldn't be that overwhelmingly difficult to withdraw us from at least certain European countries with regard to NATO. But I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I don't think it's going to happen, because that's just basically what Republicans do. The only thing they do, what it seems like they do, is just slow down the insanity of Democrats. All right, Caroline Levitt, why Trump's huge $1.5 trillion defense budget is worth every penny. Let's take a look at this from the New York Post and see what this is all about. Why is it worth every penny? $1.5 trillion, dude. I thought we were supposed to go in the other direction with regard to spending, President Trump, because he said when he was running, not only back in 2016, but also in 2020 and in 2024. Maybe not in 2020. He was more focused on the whole COVID bullshit. But in 2024, he said we were going to curb spending and we were going to reduce the deficit. Of course, the one big beautiful bill ultimately just added to the deficit. So that was kind of frustrating to see, even though we did get tax breaks. It was like the largest tax breaks that we've ever received. The last time a Democrat president signed off on reducing taxes was back in 1950-2. All right, so if he has to choose between guns and butter, President Trump has made it clear he wants the guns. This is the right choice for our national security and reflects as well a correct assessment of what should be the federal government's priority, not funding social services, but providing for the common defense. And let's see, it continues. Trump's new budget proposes $1.5 trillion in defense spending in fiscal year 2027, a staggering 40% increase over 2026. So this is a link, I'm assuming, to the details of that defense spending. This article, it'll be down in the description if you want to follow it. Click on it, and then you can go there if you want. I'm not going to link all of this stuff all together. I'll just link this article. At the same time, it outlines a 10% cut in so-called domestic discretionary programs, a category that excludes entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security. Progressives consider this tantamount to a crime against humanity. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calls the budget rotten to the core. Senator Patty Murray said its vision is bleak and unacceptable. Her colleague Jeff Merkley, Democrat from Oregon, deemed the document an out-of-touch plea for more money for guns and bombs and less for the things people need. So yeah, we get it. Democrats, they're all about the welfare state. They want us all just chained to the government in any way possible. Well, people do need a military to protect us from enemies who want to kill Americans and end U.S. geopolitical preeminence and bringing all manner of negative consequences for our economy and safety. We're not exactly living in a time of peace and stability. The United States is embroiled in a war in the Middle East that has rocked global energy markets, while Russia has repeatedly invaded a neighboring country to its west, and China could be on the cusp of precipitating the greatest major power conflict since World War II. I mean, certainly possible. Look, we're not really hearing anything with regard to China on this whole U.S.-Iran situation. But, I mean, look, I've read it. I know I've read it more than once, and I'll just stand by it, even though I could technically be wrong. But I believe that China gets the majority of their oil from Iran. Iran and Russia, right? I'm sure that Russia is probably another major source of oil for China. However, if Iran's oil supply is completely cut off, I can only imagine how pissed off China would probably get about that. Anyway, this is not a time, if one ever existed, when the fate of the country depends on robust federal funding for community development block grants. Trump intuits as much. The United States can't take care of daycare, he said last week. Yeah, and I agree. All that's going to do is just skyrocket daycare further. Anytime you've got a program that the government's going to fund, Obamacare is the best example. The only thing it does is just skyrocket it for everybody else who's not on that program. And anybody who is on the program, essentially whatever little taxes that they're paying, it's going directly to that anyway. It's absolutely ridiculous. That has to be up to a state. We're fighting wars. Medicaid, Medicare, they can do it on a state basis. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. Yeah, I also agree with that. The same with education. It should have been left to the states all along. If you want to have any kind of government-funded daycare, take care of it within your own state. Fighting and deterring wars should indeed be the prime responsibility of the federal government, rather than spending federal dollars sluicing throughout the nation to fund priorities large and small, worthy and utterly ridiculous. In characteristic fashion, the New York Times noted of Trump's budget that some of the most severe cuts would reduce or eliminate funding that benefits minority groups and their communities, and also remarked that the administration seeks to scrap any money designed to reduce racial disparities in health and those supporting gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. The mock headline writes itself. Trump seeks world-class military, minorities, and LGBTQ plus community hardest hit. There is no doubt that the scale of the Trump budget, which would be the biggest single-year increase in defense spending since the Korean War, is equal to the international challenge that we face. Much depends, though, on what specifically the budget funds and how effectively the money is eventually spent. In broad gauge, the priorities are the right ones, reflecting a new age of high-tech warfare and our shortfalls in shipbuilding. The Pentagon is requesting $11.36 billion in Air Force missile procurement in 2027, an enormous increase from $3.7 billion in 2026. The missile budget is projected to keep growing. In 2029, it would be $16 billion, an eight-fold increase from 2021. The Space Force would get a 77% increase. As for the Navy, it wants roughly $65 billion for building ships, more than doubling the $27.2 billion in 2026. In terms of bang for the buck, this administration has begun to fund more nimble, tech-driven defense firms while it pushes the traditional big players like Boeing and Lockheed to become faster and more efficient. As a practical matter, the president is unlikely to get all the defense spending that he wants from Congress, which, when confronted with a choice between guns and better, I think they meant butter, always choose both. But Trump is right to go big, to focus on the federal spending that could win or lose a war, and to determine our fate as a great power. And that was from Rich Lowry. So that was written by Rich Lowry. I'm not familiar with Rich Lowry, but if you are, he's the guy that wrote this article. And I guess we'll just rock and roll to the next one from the White House. Iran will no longer be allowed to harm the global economy with their terroristic intentions. Vice President J.D. Vance speaks on Iran from Budapest in Hungary. He gave a big speech there. There was a lot of people there today. But
we feel confident that we can get a response, whether it's positive or negative. We're going to get a response from the Iranians by 8 o'clock tonight. I hope they make the right response, because what we really want,
thank God they did,
is we want a world where oil and gas is flowing freely, where people can afford to heat their homes and cool their homes, where people can afford to transport themselves to work. That's not going to happen if the Iranians are engaged in acts of economic terrorism. So they've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use. The President of the United States can decide to use them, and he will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has any doubt about that, which is why they did come to the table after all. At least they said they did. I hope they make the right response, says VP Vance on Iran. They've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit. Okay, so I think we already heard that, right? Yeah, he said exactly that, so we'll just skip past that. What the United States and Hungary together represent under Prime Minister Viktor Orban and the president's leadership is the defense of Western civilization, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values. So let's have a look at this.
There are so many ways in which the United States and Hungary have been great economic partners, and that partnership has really accelerated over the past couple of years under President Trump's leadership. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here primarily, Victor, because of the economic cooperation between our countries. I'm here because of the moral cooperation between our two countries, because what the United States and Hungary together represent under Victor's leadership and under President Trump's leadership is the defense of Western civilization. the defense of the idea that children should be able to go to school and get educated and not indoctrinated, the defense of the idea that European and American families should be able to transport themselves and be able to afford to heat and cool their homes, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values that animate everything from freedom of speech to rule of law to respect for minority rights and protection of the vulnerable. There is so much that unites the United States and Hungary, and unfortunately, there have been too few people who have been willing to stand up for the values of Western civilization. Viktor Orban is the rare exception that has unfortunately proved the rule. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm here because Viktor is a statesman, and we have seen so much talk in European capitals about the need to end the war in Russia and Ukraine, and we certainly agree with it. The war would have never started if President Trump had been president 4 years ago.
Why do they keep sending guns to Ukraine then?
Probably the two leaders who have done the most to actually end that destructive conflict have been Donald J. Trump and Viktor Orban in Hungary. And they've done it through diplomacy, through talking to people, through trying to understand what the Ukrainians and the Russians need to end the war. We're going to continue to participate in that process, but I think that it is a testament to the people of Hungary that you're a country of 10 million people. But I'm telling you, I've sat in all the rooms and I've been on all the phone calls. Your leadership has been a far, far more important and constructive partner for peace than almost anyone anywhere else in the world. And that is a great testament, I think, to the wisdom and the courage of the people of Hungary. And then
all right, well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that we're getting along with Hungary quite well. All right. And from Libs of TikTok, Justin, huge crowd of Hungarian patriots cheer after VP J.D. Vance introduces President Trump over the phone during his speech. Trump, boy, that sounds like a big crowd, and that sounds like my kind of people. I think he puts the phone up to the the microphone. Honestly, I think he was at the White House recently. By that, I mean some point in the last year. Well, that was interesting. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. And President Trump just jumps into a speech, especially by the vice president, in front of a crowd of foreigners in a different country. But all right, so anyway, if you want to watch the whole thing, this is it. This is going to be on Vice President J.D. Vance's profile. And, of course, I will give this a link also. I'll repost it. Again, there's a direct link to my profile below in the description. It takes you straight there. You don't have to sign in or anything. You can just go straight there and just watch it if you want to. Or not. It's up to you. You could go straight to @VP. It'll be over there as well. And Rapid Response 47, DAG Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General serving under the leadership of former AG Pam Bondi. And President Trump, of course, is probably going to update that soon. Not sure if she's still technically the AG. She probably still is, technically. Although, I guess I'll have to look that up. But anyway, he says on the new DOJ, National Fraud Enforcement Division, we're going to staff this division by some of the department's best prosecutors, and there will be an additional 93 prosecutors in every district across the country devoted to the mission of combating fraud.
This isn't new for this department. We have a storied history of combating fraud and bringing criminal actors to justice. But the department has never adopted a comprehensive and coordinated approach to investigating and prosecuting fraud against taxpayer dollars and taxpayer-funded programs. With over $1 trillion at stake every single year, threatened by increasingly sophisticated and opportunistic fraudsters.
Insane, dude.
The time for this comprehensive and coordinated approach is now. And so today, I'm proud to announce in greater detail the creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division.
Well, good.
Its core mission will be to...
So what he's basically saying that with $1 trillion a year that's stolen, I don't know if that's directly from the government or if that's like a global figure of money that's just being stolen by scammers and fraudsters, but regardless, he's basically saying that if we were to stop any and all fraud, if we were to take that money and put it into, I don't know, a pool or put it into some coffers or, I don't know, the national deficit, it'll completely pay off the national deficit in just a few decades.
Zealously investigate and prosecute those who steal taxpayer dollars and rip off the American people. Our vision is to build a robust fraud-fighting squad capable of investigating and prosecuting the full spectrum of fraud against taxpayer dollars. We are going to staff this division by some of the department's best prosecutors, bringing together experts in healthcare fraud, tax fraud, benefits fraud, and corporate fraud under one roof with one mission: to protect the American people from fraud. Every U.S. Attorney's Office across the country will also be joining this re-energized fight against fraud.
Hell yeah, God willing.
This means in pure numbers that there will be an additional 93 prosecutors in every district across the country devoted to the mission of combating fraud with the National Fraud Enforcement Division.
Let's freaking go, man. That's what we like to see. And I don't know if that just happens to be a coincidence when AG Pam Bondi is leaving, that they're finally cracking down on fraud. Maybe it's just a coincidence, maybe, because they did just form the whole federal fraud task force under Vice President J.D. Vance. And we've got a follow-up. Check this out. We currently have over 8,000 fraud matters underway. These cases represent a fraction of the fraud ripping off our country. This department, working closely with the task force to eliminate fraud, is supercharging efforts. Hell
Every
yeah.
day,
8,000, man. Let's go.
Department of
Get 'em all.
Justice
Arrest 'em
investigators
all.
and prosecutors work to punish those who commit fraud. For example, just this week, and it's only Tuesday, a criminal defendant was sentenced and the department obtained 2 additional guilty pleas in matters totaling over $500 million in healthcare and COVID fraud.
Whoa, holy shit.
If you think about that, just since yesterday, we had a guilty plea in a $160 million healthcare enrollment fraud scheme and a sentencing in a $100 million COVID-19 fraud and a guilty plea in a $160 million healthcare fraud scheme as well.
Well, they better have played like an American gangster line where if you lie about 1 single cent, you'll never get out of prison. If you don't give us every single dollar, you'll never get out of prison.
Each of these cases represents countless hours of dedication from the prosecutors and the federal agents and local law enforcement who work them. The Department of Justice is holding criminals accountable for stealing over $500 million from taxpayers. And across our U.S. attorney's offices all over this country, we currently have over 8,000 fraud matters underway.
Wow, dude.
Unfortunately, as you've heard a lot about recently, because it's true, these cases represent a fraction of the fraud ripping off our country every day.
Oh, for sure.
Thanks to the leadership of
Where's the
President
IRS
Trump,
on all this?
This department,
You think they'd
working
be pretty good
closely
at this
with the
too?
task force to eliminate fraud, is supercharging efforts to take down every fraudster and bring them to justice.
Well, the Biden administration, they were trying to hire 80,000 more IRS agents, but they didn't just let that happen. So if we had more of the IRS agents, then maybe they would have gone after more fraud. I don't even know about all that. But anyway, it's still an amazing thing that they've already determined that 8,000 are going to be prosecuted, which again, he said that that's just a fraction, a pretty small number. Look, it's not like the most wonderful thing in the world to hear that they're going to be going after 8,000 fraud matters. It's absolutely pathetic and ridiculous that there's that many to start with. I mean, it should be measured in dozens of cases where people are defrauding the federal government, not measured in freaking thousands or tens of thousands or, God forbid, maybe even hundreds of thousands. It's absolutely crazy. And from the Department of State, President Trump and Secretary Rubio will not allow our country to become a home for foreign nationals who support anti-American terrorist regimes. From Fox News again.
6 years after President Trump ordered the strike that took out Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, the feds are now kicking his niece and his grandniece out of the United States, where they have been living the high life.
And they're Pomeranian
over the
too.
last many years. Secretary of State Marco
Bye,
Rubio
Fluffy.
has been all over this effort, and he posted this. Until recently,
Oh, yeah, 'cause they totally love America.
Soleimani Afshar and her daughter were green card holders living lavishly in the United States.
Oh, lavishly.
Afshar is the niece of deceased Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani. She is also an outspoken supporter.
What the fuck took him this long to get rid of him?
Of the Iranian
crazy
regime, who celebrated attacks on Americans and referred to our country as the Great Satan. This week, I terminated both Afshar and her daughter's legal status. They are now in ICE custody, pending removal from the United States. This is 6 years after President Trump ordered the strike that took out Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. The feds are now kicking his niece and his grandniece
Bye, Felicia. And
out of
bye,
the
other
United
Felicia.
States, where they have been living the high life over the last many years. Secretary of State
of course they were. My bad. I knew it started recording over again. But yeah, they're in ICE custody. They're on their way out. See ya. All right, Caroline Leavitt, the Trump administration cracks down on foreign influence in U.S. universities. It's going to be on amac.us, and that's always nice to see. Cracking down on foreign influence in U.S. universities. So the Trump administration has provided shocking new insight into just how much foreign money is flooding into American universities and is taking long overdue steps to curtail the influence of potentially hostile foreign entities. According to new data from the Department of Education, an astonishing $72.1 billion in foreign capital has flowed into U.S. higher education institutions. Okay, so it's going all the way back to 1986, but still, man, $72,000 million. That's a lot of money. When disclosures became mandatory. In 2025 alone, U.S. colleges and universities reported some 8,300 transactions from foreign entities worth $5.2 billion. Again, that was just last year, $5.2 billion. By far the top foreign contributor of the top foreign contributor all time, I mean, that doesn't really flow too well, but all right, is Qatar. Coming in at $8.8 billion. Next is China at $6.8 billion, followed by Germany, $4.9 billion, Saudi Arabia at $4.4, England, $4.3. Last year, Qatar accounted for $1.1 billion in funding, while China accounted for $528 million. I have no idea why Qatar would be giving that much money to our universities. I'm sure it's a little bit more than we just want to be nice. The top all-time recipients of foreign money were some of the most prestigious institutions in the country. Of course, Harvard University, they accepted $4.5 billion in foreign funding since 1986, while Cornell has accepted $4.2 billion. Carnegie Mellon University, $3.9, Massachusetts, MIT, Institute of Technology, of course, $3.7 billion, and University of Pennsylvania, $2.9 billion, round out the top five. A total of $404.9 million was transferred to U.S. universities by several foreign entities sanctioned by the U.S. government. Among those was Russia's Skolkovo Foundation, which has also made donations to the Clinton Foundation. Wow, fancy that. I thought they were all like anti-Russia ever since Trump came along. Sanctioned Chinese institutions included the Beijing Institute of Technology, Zhuhai, and also Huawei. I know how to say that one. Huawei Technologies company, Sun Yat-sen University, and Ocean University of China. All of these entities have ties to the People's Liberation Army, the PLA. This foreign money flowing into American colleges and universities is not just a financial issue, but a national security vulnerability. When foreign governments and state-linked entities pour millions into academic institutions, they gain leverage over research agendas, campus partnerships, and even the boundaries of acceptable debate, creating openings for propaganda, intellectual property theft, and subtle ideological influence. Even more concerning is how opaque many of these arrangements can be. Without rigorous disclosure and enforcement, universities risk becoming conduits of foreign influence or foreign interests that do not share American values. In that light, unchecked foreign funding is a strategic foothold with long-term consequences for academic integrity and national sovereignty. While U.S. higher education institutions have technically been required to report any foreign funding over $250,000 since Congress added Section 117 to the Higher Education Act in 1986, enforcement has long been severely lacking until last April when President Trump signed an executive order on transparency regarding foreign influence at American universities. I mean, look, why $250,000? Why not making like $1? I mean, any amount of money should be reported regardless. And the whole $70 billion, if it's not being enforced, then what are they suggesting? That a hell of a lot more than $70 billion has flowed into our higher education system? That order affirms that accurate funding is a vital safeguard for American interests, emphasizing that protecting American educational, cultural, and national security interests requires transparency. and declaring a clear policy to end the secrecy surrounding foreign funds in American educational institutions. It directs federal agencies to ensure complete and timely disclosure of foreign funding while working to protect the marketplace of ideas from propaganda sponsored by foreign governments and safeguard America's students and research from foreign exploitation. Let's see how much longer this goes. Okay, so this goes on for quite a ways. I'll stop there, but as I said, it'll be below if you want to have a look at that and if you want to finish that up on your own time. And you know what? I'll give that a repost too if you want to go about it the easy way. I don't know which one, like why that would be the easy way. I mean, it's going to be down in the description regardless. Anyway, breaking 911. Check this out. A massive fire has broken out at a warehouse in Ontario, California, with firefighters actively battling the 6-alarm blaze. And it's not directly swamp related, but it kind of ties into what I'm going to get into after this. So let's check this out first.
California, Dana, and the sun's coming up, and we can see the damage of this
warehouse.
Dude. That
Holy
is
shit.
extensive, right? That's Ontario, California, southern
Weird,
part
man.
of
It
the
looks
state.
like lava.
Described as a warehouse. And the aerials coming to us from KTTV. Here's what we got.
It's really bizarre looking for a fire.
Firefighters responding to the reports of smoke and flames.
Wow,
and a lot
dude,
of
the
them
whole damn
coming
thing
through the
burned
roof. So this is a second alarm augmentation call that involves 10 engine companies, 1 trunk company,
what's
one
the point,
squad,
man?
and
What's
2
the point?
battalion chiefs. So it is all hands on deck as they try and contain that blaze.
I don't think I've ever heard of a 6-alarm fire.
Wow.
I don't think I have either,
We'll keep an
actually.
eye on it.
6-alarm fire, but like, dude, literally the entire building, the entirety of it was just in flames. It looked like it was contained. Looks like it wasn't going to spread beyond the building. Maybe that's what they were doing. Maybe they were just soaking the perimeter of the building just to try to keep it contained. Because if they were trying to fire water jets into the center of it, it's like, dude, what's the point, man? You're just wasting water. But, you know, what the hell do I know? I've never been a firefighter. All right, so let's move on to Liz Churchill. Holy shit, Gavin Newsom's wife, Jennifer, ran over and killed her own sister with a golf cart, then tells San Quentin prisoners for life, quote, yours were probably accidents too. What the fuck is wrong with her? I didn't know that about her. She killed her own sister. I don't know. That's what they're saying.
I had to be very raw when we interviewed the young men who were juvenile offenders in San Quentin. I told them about my own loss, where I lost my older sister a few days before my 7th birthday, and I blamed myself for her death. And I share that because that they ultimately were accused of committing these violent crimes and sentenced for life. And I think it shocked them that this, blonde lady who was, interviewing them had a similar story, was perhaps in the wrong place at the wrong time, but wasn't punished the way they were, because clearly it was an accident, but theirs was probably an accident.
Yeah, but how do we
too.
really know that,
So anyway, I share that just because I guess, I quite enjoy spending time with people and being real and unmasking and showing them that it's safe to unmask themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, okay, beautiful. All right. Yeah, well, there is something called, involuntary manslaughter, when you didn't mean to kill somebody, but you still killed somebody. So you still have to serve the time. You still have consequences, even though it seems that a lot of liberal women these days, they just don't believe in consequences. They just don't think that they exist. Now, granted, she said she was 7 years old, right? Or I don't know if it said that I think she said that like during her speech or whatever, but obviously she's not going to go serve time in prison if she was 7 years old. But regardless, man, that was a little weird. All right, breaking 911, New York City Mayor Mamdani. We stand here together at New York City's Health and Hospital Bellevue, opening an outposted therapeutic housing unit for incarcerated individuals, the first of its kind. So at least if you're in New York City, your money is going to very good use.
We stand here together at New York City Health and Hospitals Bellevue, opening an outposted therapeutic housing unit for incarcerated individuals, the first facility of its kind.
Yeah, because none of them are going to walk right out the front fucking door.
I am deeply grateful to the many advocates and activists who have fought tirelessly to advance a more just and compassionate approach to carceral care. And I want to thank the district attorneys, public defenders, and judges who are doing the work to speed case processing and reduce our jail population. I am also proud to be joined here.
In other words, crime's going up in New York City.
Williams.
Buckle up, embrace yourself.
by our Manhattan Borough President Brad Hoylman Siegel, our Councilman Yusuf Salam, our Councilwoman Gail Brewer, and our Councilwoman Sylvina Brooks Powers, as well as a number of leaders from our city administration. Now, for decades, the daily conditions at Rikers have been calamitous and unsafe. Rikers, as we know, is broken. 2 weeks
Dude,
ago,
you're the fucking mayor.
two men
Clean it
suffered
up.
medical emergencies
Isn't that your job?
and died while in DOC custody. These are not
No, we're just going to give them therapy
isolated
instead.
incidents. More than 100 people have died on Rikers since 2015. The facilities at Rikers have long languished in disrepair, creating the conditions for violence.
Sounds like more are dying there than
and
in nice
putting those
custody,
with health
doesn't it?
Conditions at serious risk. So often, the detainees who enter Rikers, 84% of whom are being held pre-trial, leave damaged by their time on the island, traumatized, destabilized, and at greater risk for recidivism. I want to thank the
don't break the
corrections
law.
officers.
If you know
who
you're going to
show up
Rikers
work
Island, if you get
every
arrested, don't
single
break the law.
day, despite being surrounded by these very same conditions. For decades, our city's approach to mental health has leaned heavily on criminalization. For many in the throes of crisis, Rikers has been their holding cell. As such, it has become a de facto mental health facility, now standing as the second largest in the country, forcing staff and corrections officers to shoulder a burden they were never supposed to bear. And Rikers' remote location only deepens this dysfunction. For those suffering from an acute health or mental health condition, it can take 12 to 14 months just to get a single appointment. And those receiving care on the island are treated not in an outfitted care facility, but rather in a bus depot. The system fails
it's called
incarcerated
security,
individuals in need of help in two distinct ways.
Isn't that where the worst of the
they do
worst
not
in New York
receive
City
the
end
care
up?
they need for acute conditions.
On an island?
Second, it deters patients from seeking critical and sometimes life-saving treatment in the first place. These conditions are deeply counterproductive, and time after time, they have turned preventable situations into full-scale crises.
All right, well, at least you know if you live in New York City and you need mental health care, you have to go through Rikers Island first before you can get any, at least state-funded. All right, Andy, the no comment report. Stacey Loudon, formerly Barry Loudon, who was the first trans politician ever elected to state office. And guess what happened last year? Last year, he was convicted of child S crimes. That's not a laughing matter, the second half of that. He was supposed to be sentenced today, but didn't appear in court. Well, fancy that. Of course he didn't appear in court. So this is going to be on Andy No's website at nocomment.com. And he's a child S offender who was the first elected trans lawmaker in the U.S., was supposed to be sentenced today in Boston, but he suddenly could not appear due to health issues, quote-unquote health issues. And Stacey Marie Loudon, formerly Barry C. Loudon, is a Democrat from Nashua, New Hampshire, who served in the New Hampshire House of Representatives from 2012 and again in 2020. He pleaded guilty in November of 2025 to 3 federal counts of S exploitation of children. Loudon's partner, Lindsay Groves, worked at Creative Minds Daycare in Tyngsboro, Massachusetts, where she used routine bathroom breaks, including diaper changes, to photograph and abuse children. Groves sent that child S abuse material to Loudon. Groves, 40, of Hudson, New Hampshire, pleaded guilty in October 2025 to 3 counts of S exploitation of children and 1 count of distribution of child P. Federal investigators uncovered more than 10,000 messages exchanged over a month in 2023, including discussions about and transfers of abusive content. At least 4 of the images involved victims estimated to be 3 to 5 years old. My God. Loudon has a checkered criminal history that precedes the federal child S abuse charges against him. In 2008, he was sentenced to prison for felony credit card fraud and falsifying physical evidence. In 2012, he was elected to the New Hampshire State House, but resigned after it emerged that he lacked a final discharge from prison and was therefore ineligible to hold public office. Isn't that crazy? Sentenced to prison in 2008, not even 4 years later, he was elected to the New Hampshire State House. I mean, what the hell, New Hampshire? I mean, come on, man. Y'all got to do your backgrounds on your politicians. In 2015, he was arrested and convicted over a bomb threat. He was only sentenced to a suspended jail term and a restitution fine. In 2022, he was arrested and charged for allegedly stalking a woman. He resigned from his elected position in December of that year. And exploitation of children is punishable by mandatory minimum of 15 years in prison and up to 30 years per count, while distribution of child P carries a minimum of 5 years and up to 20. Loughton's sentencing has been rescheduled all the way to June 4th. It couldn't be a week from now. It couldn't be, tomorrow. And anyway, Grove's sentencing is scheduled for June the 2nd. Okay. And from Dr. Oz, CMS, children deserve care that protects their health, safety, and future. As new evidence reshapes the conversation on youth gender care, we're taking action to protect children from risky, irreversible, rejecting medical interventions. And he posted this earlier today. I believe it was this morning. Yeah, about 11:30 this morning. And it looks like, once again, Fox, they're covering Dr. Oz. The Supreme Court rebuked California early in March for forcing schools to hide students' gender transitions from their parents. Psychotic. The legal stakes in this case are significant, but also exposes a deeper divide over how society should respond when children experience gender distress, and how public health officials like us can shape policy to help those children flourish. Until recently, this debate was dominated by radical gender ideologues who insist on affirmation at any cost. From their perspective, a girl who thinks she's a boy is a boy. Failing to affirm this new identity, they believe, will cause more harm than irreversible surgeries or a lifetime regimen of cross-S hormones. And in California, the pipeline to these drastic interventions begins in the classroom, where state law requires teachers to hide kids' gender confusion from parents, even if that means sitting across from them in parent-teacher conferences and lying by omission to the very people most responsible for those children's care and well-being. Socially transitioning children at school puts them on a collision course with rejecting medical interventions that cause lower bone density, infertility, cardiovascular problems, and other painful, costly health issues. And look, I think it all ends right here with infertility. I think that's really their ultimate agenda. They just want to depopulate the earth. I think that's what the whole thing is all about. Pitting women against men, and you get an abortion and you get an abortion. Everybody gets an abortion. Everybody becomes gay now. I think that's what it's all about, man. There is no off-ramp. California's ban on conversion therapy applies not just to the abusive practices most people associate with that term, but to any counseling that might reduce children's gender distress without transitioning them. Multiple states have similarly broad bans on their books, though the Supreme Court just struck down Colorado's. Those policies are rooted in academic queer theory rather than science, but after a long campaign of infiltration and intimidation, activists managed to align the medical profession with their ideology. Just a few years ago, they could claim that every major medical association considered rejecting interventions for trans-identifying youth to be safe and life-saving, even though it clearly isn't. But that confidence was never matched by strong evidence. Thankfully, the tide has turned. There's a growing international consensus that the gender activists were wrong. Scientific reviews in Sweden and Finland, as well as the UK's rigorous CAS report, helped convince those countries to dramatically scale back rejecting interventions for children and adolescents. Last fall, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services published a comprehensive review titled Treatment for Pediatric Gender Dysphoria, Review of Evidence and Best Practices, which arrived at the same conclusion, that medically transitioning minors conveys no proven benefits. The choice between a trans son or a dead daughter convinced thousands of parents to approve interventions that irreparably damaged their children. It turned out to be a false dichotomy. And I'm telling you what, I bet that virtually every single one of these kids are going to detest their parents for putting them through this. Evidence also increasingly suggests that trans-identifying kids were not simply born in the wrong body, but may instead be struggling with deeper issues. Yeah, that's why gender dysphoria was on, the DSM-5 or whatever, and it's been on the books for friggin' decades. The recent spike in youth gender dysphoria coincided with a massive decline in teen mental health, likely driven by smartphones and social media, while also indoctrination by public education. Both trends were more pronounced among girls. One influential study found that 63% of adolescents presenting with gender distress have at least one co-occurring neurodevelopmental disability or mental health disorder. These kids don't need puberty blockers and hormones. They need psychotherapy, family counseling, thorough clinical evaluation, and perhaps treatment for anxiety or depression. Not a rush toward irreversible medical interventions. Absolutely. Based on these findings, CMS and HHS took action in December by proposing 2 new rules to ensure that taxpayer-funded health programs are guided by evidence, not ideology. The first stops taxpayer dollars from subsidizing S-rejecting interventions for children through CHIP and Medicaid. The second bans hospitals that perform these interventions from participating in Medicare and Medicaid, given the considerable safety risks to children. In January, CMS convened all the major medical associations involved in S-rejecting interventions for minors and held a grand rounds on the available evidence. A month later, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons issued a courageous and principled statement acknowledging that there was insufficient evidence demonstrating a favorable risk-benefit ratio for gender-related endocrine and surgical interventions in children and adolescents. The American Medical Association quickly followed suit. The fake scientific consensus in favor of medically transitioning children has finally shattered. Not long ago, the parents who stood up to California would have stood alone, but not anymore. This administration has their back. We will continue to champion scientific rigor and genuine compassion against the bullying dogmatism of radical gender ideologues. We will free this country's institutions from the long captivity to which the activists and their allies have subjected them, and we will always put parents and children first. And this is from Stephanie Carlton, Deputy Administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And we will roll on to Liz Churchill. One doctor in California billed Medicare for caring for 2,800 dying patients at 126 different hospices. Dr. Buva spent 7 seconds per patient per day while raking in millions of dollars. Taxpayers are funding this end-of-life grift on steroids in Newsom's blue state scam. Yeah, he's in on it. He's totally in on it. Come on.
Investigation into fraud in the hospice
Just my opinion, of course.
industry. Our investigative
But he's
unit
totally in on
found
it.
some potential red flags when hospice doctors submitted claims for more than 20 times the number of patients the average California doctor cares for in a year. CBS News correspondent Adam Yamaguchi hit the road to follow the money.
Did she say more patients in a day than a doctor on average in a year?
The state of California says that if a doctor is involved with any more than even just a few hospices, it is a sign of potential fraud. At the heart of the industry are doctors who are trusted to sign off on care. But in records for the active physicians caring for terminal patients, one stands out. A man whose name appeared on claims from 126 hospices and had 60% more in Medicare reimbursements than the next closest doctor in 2024, the last full year of available data. Dr. Rajiv Buva. My name is Adam Yamaguchi. I'm a correspondent with CBS News, and we're doing a story about hospice, and we're just trying to understand how often he's here.
I didn't see him
in a long time. Neither had many of the hospices we visited. We wanted to find Dr. Buva to ask how he managed to work for so many different providers. So we followed a trail of hospice offices
Busy schedule.
linked to his name and Medicare claims totaling $71 million in 2024 across the LA basin. We understand that Dr. Rajiv Buva is the medical director here. We're just trying to get some information about him. He's not? No. Was he at some point?
Yes, he was.
But you're telling me he no longer is associated with you guys?
No.
Was he at some point? Okay. On average in California, a
Of
hospice
course.
doctor
They're
cares
in on
for
it.
about 140 patients in a year. In 2024, claims with Buva's name were submitted for nearly 2,800 terminally ill patients.
There's no reason to think that that's legitimate.
Dr. Christina Newport has been in the hospice field for 18 years. There are a range of reasons why one physician might be identified in connection with the care of so many patients, including stolen identity.
If someone is really effectively evaluating the plan of care for every patient that they admit to the hospice, which is their job and their responsibility, they, would have a superhuman schedule to do that in a meaningful way.
CBS News found Buva's name tied to several hospices that lost their Medicare certification for what regulators called an abusive billing, a pattern of submitting improper claims. We reached out to him on the phone and email, but couldn't connect with him. So we headed to Dr. Buva's home address. Dr. Buva came out. He said that
investigative journalism for you.
being affiliated with dozens of hospices is
We
not
need more
illegal,
just like him.
And I said, you're correct.
Investigative journalist,
There's
that
nothing
is.
in the law that prevents someone from being affiliated with many. But again, it raises flags, and that's what I have questions about. Buva said he wanted to see our information. Until
course he
then,
drives a
He said he
Lexus.
wouldn't talk any further. So we came back with the data.
Why are you blurring the
Dr.
license
Buva,
plate, man?
This is Adam Yamaguchi
Put him on
again
blast.
with CBS News. We were able to hear you through the door. he's made his decision.
Don't be pro-doxing.
Now, we tried multiple ways and times to get in touch with Dr. Buva. The first time we spoke with him without cameras, he asked us to come back with documents. And when we did, he wouldn't answer the door.
No, of course
We'd
not.
still like to talk to him.
It's a really important investigation, raising these questions about fraud.
Absolutely. One of the things that's so shocking about all of this is that this appears to be hiding in plain sight. When you look at those numbers,
Obviously.
the 126 hospices and the nearly 2,800 patients in 1 year, we're the only ones asking these questions.
Oh. Something tells me, Adam, more people will be asking questions after that story today. I love how you went back and said, we're here with the data, and we can hear you inside your house. Let's see if he gets in touch
And I think
with you.
the question that many people have is, why is my health care so expensive? And is it because of all this
Obamacare
fraud that exists out there?
in part. This too, of course.
Ultimately, we the taxpayers end up paying.
Yeah, we do.
Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Well, and also, of course, if they have all of these hundreds of offices that are in these commercial buildings that are just taking up space and they're fraudulently stealing our money, it's kind of a double whammy. But as soon as these offices are emptied out and free to lease, then maybe it just might drive down the cost to have to rent a commercial property for a small business. Maybe we might get a little bit of a break once they clean all of them out. Lee Zeldin, and he's with the EPA. 1 year ago, I closed the $4 million Biden EPA museum that almost no one ever visited or even knew existed, RIP. In total last year at the Trump EPA, where the annual operating budget is around $10 billion, our team achieved $30 billion in savings by canceling grants and media contracts, consolidating real estate, reducing staff size, and cutting costs in many other key ways. And he's got a follow-up. The Biden administration spent $4 million in tax dollars on a museum to tell a selective story of EPA's history. It cost $600,000 a year to operate, even though only 1,909 external visitors came through in the last 9 months. So that place is empty. Today, we are closing it. Well, good. I think it should be closed.
If you were to visit the museum located here at EPA headquarters in D.C., you would learn a lot about the road to environmental justice and climate change.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
This museum claims EPA pursues its mission by advancing environmental justice, equity, and civil rights compliance. A timeline of key events conveniently
So it's a DEI
omits
museum.
any mention of President Trump's first administration. I'm currently standing inside of this museum, which was built and curated by the Biden administration with $4 million in taxpayer dollars. As if this wasn't enough of a price tag to fill a room the size of an apartment. This shrine to environmental justice and climate change cost the American taxpayer $600,000 to operate annually. This agency has been spending
So the person who's running this, the curator or whoever, whose son or daughter of a Democrat politician is actually running this place and making like, what, $400,000 a year?
$23,000 on cleaning.
Doing absolutely nothing.
$207,000 for security. $54,000 on maintenance, and an additional $54,000 on storage. From May 2024 through last month, only 1,909 members of the public visited the museum. Even though it is free
Any field
admission,
trips? Probably not.
This museum costs you, the taxpayer, $315 per external visitor.
It's insane.
I have pledged to be an exceptional steward of taxpayer dollars. So this
Oh, good.
shrine to EJ and climate change will now be shut down for good.
Amen.
I will do my part to help the American people learn more about the amazing work of our agency to provide cleaner, healthier, and safer land, air, and water. We will do so without paying over $500,000 in tax dollars on a museum that is barely visited and designed to tell an ideologically slanted
Looks like
partial
Biden's the
story
only
of
white dude on
EPA.
the entire board, doesn't it?
Under President Trump, we are ending the practice of burning tax dollars on pet projects.
It's all about
and do
diversity.
nothing to help this agency achieve our mission of protecting human health and the environment.
Protecting human health and the environment. Hey, protecting the environment is a good thing. I don't think anybody's going to take a hard stance against, protecting the environment, but you got to use common sense. Don't use, psychopathic, climate change propaganda that's not even really rooted in reality, at least as far as the extent that they're peddling it. I mean, I remember in high school, like even back in high school, like I graduated back in 2003, and they were telling us that the state of Florida by the year 2100 will be completely underwater, like all the way underwater, like by the year 2100. And I've lived in Florida for over 20 years, and I don't think we've lost a single inch to the ocean on our beach. And I live near a very narrow beach. And I don't know, man, by their logic or by their estimates, I mean, the entire county that I live in should have been underwater by now. But nope, it's almost as if they're full of shit. All right, Secretary John Duffy, Air Traffic Control captures the amazing story of a woman delivering a baby on a flight, and controllers helped guide the delivery. Guess what they suggested as a name for the newborn? Great work, team. Let's have a look at the video.
A pregnant woman went into labor on a Caribbean Airlines flight from Kingston, Jamaica to New York City on Saturday and delivered the baby just before the plane touched down at JFK Airport. The control tower even had a baby name suggestion.
We have a passenger, a pregnant passenger who's going into labor at this time, requesting direct details. And Caribbean 5, would you like the medical personnel at your gate? Yes, sir. Thank you. Caribbean 5 ground? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Is it out yet? Yes, sir.
All
right. Tell her she's got to name it Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Will do.
She's got to name it Kennedy.
Now, in a statement, the airline
Hilarious.
confirms no emergency was declared during the flight and that both the mom and the baby were met by medical personnel when they landed. No word yet on the baby's name.
They're probably going to name it Kennedy, especially all the attention that they got as a result. I don't know, though, man. Nope. If it were me, I already had my name picked out for my daughter long time before even found out that I was going to have a daughter. All right, so Secretary Sean Duffy, another one from Secretary Sean Duffy. Thanks to President Trump, we're surging air traffic controller hiring like never before. Staffing levels are at a 6-year high, with more and more coming through the pipeline. Look, I think that's amazing news, especially after the last couple of government shutdowns. I don't think air traffic control was affected during this most recent shutdown because I don't believe that they're underneath the Department of Homeland Security, but they were definitely affected during the last shutdown. And they almost got to the point where they were just going to do a full-on walkout or a revolt or something. They were kind of freaking out during that last shutdown over the fall. But anyway, so it's good news.
We had the biggest year of hiring in 6 years.
That they're hiring a lot.
With air traffic controllers. So we hired 2,400 new controllers in the last 12 months. We have more controllers for the first time since pre-pandemic. We have big classes coming through. Next week, we're going to announce a new class of air traffic controllers. We're thinking differently. We have a 30% washout rate. So how do we bring that rate down? Again, we want to have a washout rate, but 30% is too high. Getting the right young adults to get into the school is what we're thinking through right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. Well, there's a hell of a lot of money to be made in air traffic control. They make 6 figures, I think, don't they? I think they do. Lee Zeldin, to update today, the Trump EPA has finalized our deregulatory decision on OOOOB/C. I'm not familiar with that lingo, but anyway, CNN, that is not a typo because apparently in this video they claimed that was a typo. But it fixes Biden-era oil and natural gas regulations. Today's action is estimated to save $2.5 billion, which will help lower gasoline and energy costs across the board to benefit American families. And he's got another one, another media fact check. Faceplant where the fact checker doesn't have the slightest clue what he's talking about. OOOOBC is not a typo. 40 CFR Part 60 Subpart OOOO or Quad O is a federal regulation under the Clean Air Act. Also, those aren't zeros. It's the letter O. OOOO.
Today, Lee Zeldin put out a video on X, and they were putting out press releases with such a flurry, about 31 different actions and rollbacks, that some of them had typos or placeholders at the top. We have one of those there. Trump EPA announces 000. You can see there. It's sort of shoot first, fill out the press release later.
God, these people are brain dead. They're so fucking retarded. They don't have any fact checkers. No, of course they don't. They're freaking CNN. Of course they don't. They just literally assume anything and everything that they see. Use no common sense, anything to pick up the phone. All right, VA Secretary Doug Collins. When I started last year, I asked the Department of Veterans Affairs wouldn't continue to do things the way it always has. I promised to expand access to care and cut the red tape. These 100,000 new enrollees are proof that we're delivering on that promise. To our newest enrollees, welcome. To those still waiting, our doors are open. Veterans enrolled for VA healthcare this year is up to 100,000. And Speaker Mike Johnson, Uber Eats driver Bob Mitchell told me that even his accountant was shocked by how much more money he is keeping thanks to no tax on tips. That's why Republicans pushed through the working families tax cuts so millions of hardworking Americans like Bob can keep more of what they earn. Remember, every single Democrat voted against allowing Americans to keep more of their hard-earned money as they did. Democrats voted against it.
Hey, how are you, Mr. Johnson? Good. I have your delivery right here.
Fantastic, thanks. Last year, Republicans
Yeah, that
passed
wasn't
the Working
staged.
Families Tax Cut, which provided truly historic tax relief for hardworking American
Wasn't
families.
staged. Well, then
One
how'd
of
the camera get
biggest
inside Mike
things we
Johnson's
did in that
office?
legislation was provide for no tax on tips, and that means everyone keeps more of their hard-earned dollars in their own pocket. One of the great people that's benefited from this is my friend Bob Mitchell from South Florida, and he's an Uber Eats
Hey,
driver.
South
Been
Florida.
doing that for quite some time, and he just made a little delivery for us this morning, and I'm delighted to have you, Bob. Thanks for coming in to
It's a
watch
pleasure. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure enough. Well, I wanted to hear a little bit about your story. You've been an Uber Eats driver for quite some time, right?
11 years.
So you've obviously enjoyed the job, and my guess is you've made quite a bit of tips over the years, right?
Yes,
Been
I
part of
have. Yes, I have.
So you probably paid a lot of taxes on those tips. I know you have, but your experience this year has been a little different, I guess, right?
Yes. What was amazing was when I did my tax return this year, I wound up getting over 20% more.
I still
compared
gotta
to
do my
last year and the
taxes.
year before. And
I
I
keep
usually
forgetting.
Get, very nice return.
I always
And I
procrastinate.
was shocked. Even my accountant was shocked. She was like, I can't believe it. And I said, thanks to the legislation that they passed, the no tax on tips, it's made a difference.
It's made a difference for a lot of people because we put into the law this provision that you can deduct up to $25,000 of taxes that you would have paid on
$25,000.
tips. That's a big thing for a lot of hardworking people, and helped your family a lot too.
Especially with my family, because I have a son who's in his second year at University of Florida College, and my daughter's graduating high school, and she's going to be going off. So, I have expenses, and this is definitely going to.
What's he doing delivering Uber in DC?
It makes my life much easier. And
Oh,
much easier
he's
to,
an Uber delivery
But
driver
another thing
in
that's
Florida.
been amazing is people I picked up.
Long drivers
since
with
this has
coffee.
happened, I picked up bartenders, I picked up servers, I picked up barbacks. And, they're all saying the same thing. They can't believe what a difference it has made now with the no tax on tips for them. And I will tell you this, what everybody is very impressed about, and same thing for me, this is a piece of legislation that doesn't benefit you in Congress. It doesn't benefit the president. No, this was done for us, the people, the hardworking people, and that's what's amazing.
Yeah, pretty simple.
I'm so glad you said that. It's one of President Trump's favorite provisions. It's one of the Republican Party's greatest achievements of a really historic first year of the second term of President Trump.
Well, and Trump came up with that just off the top of his head.
For lower and middle class earners.
Why do we tax
That's where
tips?
I come from.
No tax
our
tips.
people, and it's going to benefit those folks.
Yeah, it is. That's our major industry down there.
Yeah.
Same with overtime, man. That's going to help a lot of
Everybody
people
was
for
feeling
sure.
the positive effects from it, and it's fantastic.
Well, thanks for sharing your story, Bob. We're so excited about that. Glad it's helping your family. You're exactly the guy we had in mind. Everybody like you. Thanks for coming in and sharing your story.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and especially the overtime. It always should have been that way because, people who are working overtime, they're obviously working hard. So, that would give you a lot more motivation to take in extra overtime and bust your ass working overtime so you can get more overtime because they'll pick you above other people who don't work as hard for overtime, especially when you're not getting taxed on your overtime. It's an amazing thing. So check this out. In wokeness, American ingenuity is undefeated. A picture of the Earth as seen from the moon when Artemis II, the astronauts on the Orion spacecraft, were they were at the moon. They didn't set foot on the moon. They were about 4,000 miles off the surface of the moon, but they were just rounding the far side of the moon right before they lost contact with the Earth, and they snapped that picture just seconds before they lost contact for about 45 minutes. I thought it was like an hour and a half that they lost contact because when they went around the far side of the moon, the contact obviously was severed between the Orion and the Earth itself, ground control, mission control, what have you. So when they came around the other side of the moon and they started heading back toward the Earth, that's when contact was reestablished. But man, what a picture, man. It's an awesome picture. Very, very, very cool. Dan Scavino, in case you missed it, President Trump's phone call last night up to the Artemis II astronauts after they surpassed the distance record set by Apollo 13, traveling further from Earth than any humans before them. They broke the record. They are the farthest, the 4 humans that travel farther than any other human has ever traveled in human history, at least that we know of, and what the ancient Egyptians were capable of doing.
Administrator Isaacman, we've got you loud and clear, sir. How us?
I've got you loud and clear. Artemis II crew, we have a very special guest who wanted to be the first person to greet you after your return from the far side of the moon. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy, it's my honor to introduce the President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. Over to you, sir.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Jared, and you are doing a fantastic job. And hello, very special hello to Artemis II. Today you've made history and made all America really proud, incredibly proud. We have a lot of things to be proud of lately, but this is there's nothing like what you're doing, circling around the moon for the first time in more than a half a century. And
53 years.
The all-time record for the farthest distance from planet Earth. Humans have really never seen anything quite like what you're doing. In
That's a hell of a milestone.
Spacecraft. It's really special. I want to personally salute and congratulate Commander Reed Weissman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. And I also want to thank the entire amazing team at NASA, headed by Jared, who's a very special guy, by the way, and you all made this day possible, and you've really inspired the entire world. Really, everybody's watching. They find it incredible. I just watched you go to the back of the moon, and people haven't been there in a long time, we can say, but it's going to be more and more prevalent because we're going to be doing a lot of traveling, and then you're going to ultimately do the whole big trip to Mars, and that's going to be very exciting. So you look at, we had no astronaut has been to the moon since the days of Apollo program. The Apollo program was also very special, but that was 50 years ago. And at long last, America is back, and America is back in many ways stronger than ever before. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world. The Artemis crew flew in the most powerful rocket NASA has ever made, ever launched. Traveled over 250,000
Yeah, that thing
miles,
skyrocketed up through the atmosphere, man. That thing was taking off
13.
fast, too.
And America is a frontier
amazing to watch.
nation, and the 4 brave astronauts of Artemis II are a modern day, you really are modern day pioneers, all of you, and one of them happens to be a neighbor. You know who that is, right? You have a special person over there, a neighbor, and we like our
neighbor to the north.
Your mission paves the way for America's return to the
future state of Canada, right?
Very soon. We're going all out. We're doing everything we can, and it's headed up by Jared. We'll plant our flag once again, and this time we won't just leave footprints. We'll establish a permanent presence on the moon, and we'll push on to Mars. That'll be very exciting. I'm waiting for that so much. I'd love to be here, but maybe we won't quite make it in terms of timing, but we will be up in the moon, and that's going to happen soon. So America will be second to none in space and everything else that we're doing, and we will continue to lead the
Trump will still be president when they land on the moon.
Incredible journey.
No go for Mars, though.
So I just wanted, it's an honor to speak to you, and I wanted to congratulate each and every one of you. And tell me, what is the most unforgettable part of this really historic day? The whole world is watching and listening.
Oh, it had to be hooking around the moon, man. Especially seeing that crescent Earth. It would have been amazing, dude. Watching the moon get bigger than the Earth, that had to be absolutely surreal.
President, this call is certainly special to all of us, and we really have a lot of faith in our administrator, Jared Isaacman, who is with you. We appreciate his leadership in NASA and in the international community. We are doing great things, and we are proud to be a part of. I have to tell you, as we came around the near side of the moon, seeing all the sights that we've seen from Earth for all of our lives, but we're seeing them from a different perspective, and then we started to get a glimpse of the and we saw sites, Oriental sites that no human has ever seen before, not even in Apollo, and that was amazing for us.
Oh, wow.
And then the surprise of the day, we just came out of an eclipse where the sun, moon, and the entire dark moon about that big right out the window that we were watching. We could see the corona of the sun, and then we could see the planet train line up. And
hope they got pictures of
all
that.
us commented how excited we are to watch this nation.
Supposedly they were
and this
taking
planet
pictures constantly.
become a
They were
two-planet
taking
species.
turns.
That is fantastic. You know, I had a decision to make in my first term, and the decision is, what are we going to do at NASA? Are we going to
I remember that. He wanted to defund them.
Close it down?
Not completely.
And I had very little hesitation, and it's really great to have somebody like
I
Jared
don't know,
involved,
dude.
because he really
Trump
makes
wanted
it
to
much
reduce
easier
funding for
me,
NASA.
But it was not.
I'm pretty sure I
even
remember
a
that.
question in my own mind. We've spent what we had to do, and then of course we have Space Force, and Space Force is very much related to what you're doing, and that was my baby. That was a very important one, and it'll turn out to be truly one of the most important, I believe, decisions I've ever made. So we're very proud of Space Force, and we're very proud of all of you. Does anybody else have anything to say? A lot of people listening.
Come on, guys, speak up. Somebody's got to say something.
Mr. President, to be here with you speaking about our incredible day today. I think one of the biggest highlights was coming back from the far side of the moon and having the first glimpses of planet Earth again after being out of communication for about 45 minutes. It really just reminds you what a special place we have and how important it is for our nation to lead and not follow in exploring deep space.
I'd like to ask, what was your feeling when you had no communication, zero communication, all of a sudden it was cut off by
Yeah, probably was scary.
Your very special location. What was your feeling when you had no communication? A little bit different, perhaps.
Yes, Mr. President, it was I said a little prayer.
I don't
but then
think
I
that
had
they're
to keep
bantering and
rolling. I was
joking.
actually
I think
recording
there's a delay.
Scientific observations of the far side of the moon. You know, that is actually the time when we were the farthest and the closest to the moon, and so we were really able to make some of our most detailed observations of the far side of the moon up close. And so we were busy up here working really hard, and I must say it was actually quite nice.
Yeah.
Did you see a difference, a big difference between the far side of the moon and the near side of the moon? Was there a difference in feel or difference in look? What did you see?
Well, Mr. President, we certainly did, and our science team really set us up well to understand what they thought we might see. And the gravitational pull of the Earth has had a profound effect on the near side of the moon, changing all those dark mares, those dark patches of the moon you see from Earth. It's very different on the far side.
Yeah,
while you see
it's almost
some
totally
small
white.
patches of those mare in deep craters, it's
Very
very much
featureless.
absent on that side. So that's really neat. And while I have the microphone, sir, I just want to thank you on behalf of Canada. The space leadership you spoke of from America truly is extraordinary. I've said this many times before. A nation that leads like that and creates and sets big goals for humanity that brings other countries along with it is truly incredible. And I know that's a very intentional, not a necessary decision. Intentional decision.
Damn straight.
To lead by example and to allow other countries like Canada to share our gifts and help you achieve these mutually beneficial goals, like establishing a presence on the moon and eventually going to Mars. And Canadians are so proud to be a part of this program.
Well,
Yeah,
I
man,
have
it's
to
a big
say
deal
I
for
spoke
Canada.
To a very special person, Wayne Gretzky, who I think you know, the great one. And I spoke to your prime minister and many other friends I have in Canada. They are so proud of you. And,
They're laughing
you have
about
a
their
lot of
Wayne
courage.
Gretzky.
I'm not sure if they'd want to do that. I'm not even sure if the great one would want to do that, to be honest with you. But you have a lot of courage doing what you're doing, a lot of bravery and a lot of genius. But they're very, very proud of you.
Administrator Alex, I'm going to just get a quick comm check, make sure you guys are still on the line and we didn't have a handover.
I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, so they lost
And,
contact for a minute.
Integrity, and back over to you, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think we might have gotten cut off. It is a long distance. It's a long ways. The reception's been great. There's
a lot of communication with the systems on board, too, that might interrupt the feed.
No, I just had a statement for, I don't know what you heard, but I was just saying they're very proud of your brilliant person from Canada on the ship. And Wayne Gretzky is a great friend of mine, and he's very proud of him. And the Prime Minister I spoke to, they're very, very honored that you have a courageous person from Canada. You have a lot of courageous people from Canada, so it was very nice. I'm not sure if you heard me say that, but it was very nice.
Yes, Mr. President, we heard that, and we do love our Jeremy Hansen. We love all our Canadian astronauts, Jenny Gibbons, Josh Kutrick. They're just great people, and they're such a welcome addition to our Corps.
Great. Well, I really look forward to, when we can, I look forward to seeing you in the Oval Office. I'll ask Jared to bring you over, and I'll ask for your autograph, because I don't really ask for autographs much, but you deserve
I can imagine.
that. You really are something. Everybody's talking about this, and I look forward to having you in the Oval Office at the White House, and we will celebrate your incredible achievements and triumphs. This is big. This is really big stuff. The whole world is talking about it, and if you have the time, I will certainly.
Yeah, I mean, there are a million people watching live on YouTube when they rounded the moon.
You know, but I will absolutely find the time, and we'll get
Watching
together. And I'm going to be giving you a big salute on behalf of the American people and beyond that.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. And when you want us, we will be there. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you to Jared for his leadership. Really, thank you for taking the time out today to visit NASA. It's really special for us, but it's really special for the team on the ground. A whole team of people all around the world.
Yeah, he actually went all the way to
off.
NASA.
And we just want to say thank you to all of you for this. It is the thrill and honor of a lifetime to have been on this journey. Today was amazing, but this 3-year journey has been amazing, and it was made possible by the American people and the Canadian people. And we're so grateful to you all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And Jared, congratulations. We'll see you soon. And I know that you have Mars very much in your mind, so we'll start thinking about that pretty soon, I think. And thank you. Congratulations to everybody. I'll see you at the Oval Office.
Thank you for your time, Mr. President. It's been an honor.
All right, there you go. So that was the entire video. I wasn't sure if I was going to play the whole thing or not, but I'm still underneath the 2-hour mark, and this is the final thing. This is on whitehouse.gov. In case you missed it, President Trump congratulates Artemis II crew on making history, and the only reason I included this is because they broke it up by section, which I guess is irrelevant at this point. If you watched this video up until this point, then it doesn't really ultimately matter, because like just the back and forth communication that they had between President Trump and the astronauts is all included in this article on whitehouse.gov. But regardless, if you want to have a look at that, I'll have that down below in the description, free to check out. And in the meantime, I guess I will be concluding the video. So if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday and everyone in it, the politicians, bureaucrats, agencies, administration. I also post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for tomorrow's episode. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow at around 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for watching. Always remember to stay positive. God bless the troops, and God bless America.